Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are, because I know that you are connected from different parts and different continents. So we are very pleased to welcome you today to the session, a new one, number 22, PAFO, Pan-African Farmers Organization and COLEAD Innovation Sessions, Innovation Series. And today the session is what I think a very exciting one. It's about all the farm-to-table and successes of origin-linked products in Africa. It is a very timely, always very interesting subject, always with new developments, and especially looking at the potentialities and opportunities comparing to with other parts of in the world in Africa. So we will see many interesting cases. There could be more. And that's why we will attempt today to look at those opportunities. So thank you again for being with us. These series are also supported, of course, by COLEAD, but more importantly, by the European Commission, the International Development Part, INPA, as well as the Organization of the African, Caribbean and Pacific States, and implemented by a program which is FFM Plus, Fit for Market Plus at COLEAD. And you all know already that COLEAD is an association, a non-for-profit association of private sector operators in the agri-food sector. So today we all know that Africa is really home to a very rich diversity of agricultural products that are deeply linked to their origins. Hence, the origin-linked products, or also known as a geographical indication, GIs, or terroir in French, terroir-based products, and is really to highlight unique qualities they have due to their geographic origin, the traditional know-how, the heritage, the cultural, social heritage, and so on. So they really not only preserve those local traditions rooted in very specific parts, rural area parts, but they also present very important opportunities for economic growth, not only economic growth, but also rural development and sustainability. So what we would like to look today through a few examples is the economic opportunities they bring, especially what always interests us in those sessions is to boost income for farmers and in particular small scale producers who really are the ones that need our support as development partners by creating, access to markets and in this particular case, even premium pricing. We want to discuss the cultural identity and heritage, which is the protection of traditional knowledge and all the marketing around the local products. Of course, the sustainability, which we all adhere to, and the biodiversity, since they encourage environmentally friendly farming practices and a good, management of resources. And of course, all the market access and competitiveness with the branding. We will go through this, and quality assurance and so on. So they are really powerful tools for identity and recognition. We have seen that from where I sit in Europe, in Belgium, but in many of European countries, it has been and continues to be and growing a significant success. And in Africa, we have many successes, but we still believe that, as I say, that there is an untapped potential for greater recognition and market value. So we are very happy to have with us a few, of course, we had to select. So we selected a few African successes, stories that we will hear today. And then in the second panel, we will have experts from the development partners, organizations that support for a very long time and with success geographical indications and origin-linked products in Africa, elsewhere as well, but for these sessions are focused on Africa. I think that Babafemi, unless I am mistaken, will join us a bit later. If not, you just alert me if you are online, but I received that he was traveling. So without, let's say, a major delay, you already know that these sessions are recorded, of course, that all the material will be shared afterwards, including the recording, but also all the presentations and resources as well on the topic. You also know that it's translated in English, French, Portuguese. So please go to the bottom of your screen, click on the little globe and choose the language in which you want to follow the session. And it works very well because we have done all the tests with the speakers. And then put, your insights, etc., or introduce yourself, or what you want to share in the chat. And preferably in the Q&A, pose your questions to the panelists. We will bring those at the end of all the presentations, then we consolidate them and we will have more time for discussion. So without a major delay, I give the floor to the first panelist. So from Africa, we have three cases, one from Senegal, one from Guinea, and one from Cameroon, illustrating three different products.
Now, we will start with another order because Mr. Florent Leno has a problem. Tahirou, Pape, Kanoute is secondly is agriculture engineer and economist specializing in organization and quality of agriculture and food sectors as an executive director of the ETDS, founder of this ETDS. He is dedicated to regional governance and socio-economic development. He is specialized on geographical indications in West Africa. You also contributed to the African Union strategy on GIs. We will come back on this later on, and you have led studies on products which will not necessarily be presented today, like the Casamance honey, Lake Red Basalt, Manjac bovine cloth, and mad of Casamance. This is a case that you will be showing to us today. You coordinate the IG registration project for mad Casamance, aiming to protect and promote this wild fruit while enhancing environmental sustainability and local economic development. I will let you present the case of the Casamance. And when we present successes, of course, this is always accompanied with difficulties. Challenges are enormous, but if you are persistent, you can make it. And so we'll be listening to you what the opportunities are for the participants to apply for a GI, the different paths and opportunities that the Madame Casamance is presenting. So thank you very much for your contribution. And thank you for sharing your screen.
I apologize if I wasn't always within reach because I was actually traveling, but I must say it's a pleasure for me to take part in this session. So I'm going to tell you the story of the GI of Casamance. It's part of Senegal. It's a famous area in the southern part of Senegal. It's highly developed. It's a multi-ethnic area, and it has a very close relationship with cultural traditions and natural resource management practices. So this is a specificity of Casamance. And we have many forest fruit which play a very important role in the subsistence of local population. I've shown you a few images showing you this. Now, developing a geographical indication actually is based on important work. You need to start structuring your work, and you need to start by identifying the product. So this is the first stage in the process of developing an origin-linked product. It's also a top-down approach. So this means that it needs to, so it's actually not a top-down. It has to start from the basis. There needs to be a specific quality associated to the geographical origin, which differentiate the product from the standard product on the same market. So what are the factors that will play a role in geographical indication? Now, you can have natural factors such as the soil, the local animal breeds, plant varieties, sun exposure, and so on and so forth. But there can also be, and that's why I wrote and or, human factors, because you have traditional equipment, traditions, know-how. So you don't necessarily need to have all three of these factors combined, and of course, reputation. But for developing a geographical area, you need first to locate the product, you need to mobilize staff, then you need to create an association that will take care of achieving this geographical indication. Sometimes you have already a structured group which is taking care of this. Then you need to have a list of specification, and for that you need to set up a control plan. And so this is absolutely important for the development of a GI. The third phase is the additional surveys and examinations. The most important phase is the management of the GI. So having a geographical indication is not an end unto itself. It all starts when you finally get it. So what is MAD? It's actually, the scientific name is a Saba senegalensis. It's actually a forest liana that can grow in West Africa and in a few countries. But MAD, which comes from Casamance, has a specificity which we have analyzed, and this is how we decided to have the IG approach. MAD is a species which is in symbiosis, which grows in symbiosis with the forest. It's a liana which grows and is growing all around the trees in Casamance. And that's the link between MAD and the forest ecosystem of Casamance. So it's a forest fruit which constitute a food and nutritional safety net for a rural population. It plays a very important role in the preservation of the area, because it protects, when it is well developed, these liana, the fruit, will protect trees from bush fires. The whole it all started back in 2017. There was a seminar on geographical indication that took place in Cap Shrine. And so there was an awareness raising tour in the production areas. And so what was at stake was properly presented, and that's how it started in 2017. And so all the processing companies got closer to us and approached us to ask us to accompany them in this process. So it all started with a small association that had this desire to protect the product. In other countries, it could be the other way around, but not so in Senegal. It's the bases, so the players at the bases who actually pushed the institutions to put in place a national committee in 2019 and until 2022, they started elaborating a list of specifications, and it continued so in the following years. I always say that if we did not have this already in place in Casamance, if we didn't have the organization, the association to begin with, it would have been a lot harder to achieve the goal. So these associations play a very important role. You know, the area is quite vast. There are 3 main areas. So the first decision was to see which areas needed to be included, which players needed to be included and which needed not to be included. So it was a big challenge. And so the MAD of Casamance was a very important challenge for us. You know, it comes from Wolof in the north of Senegal. Everybody wanted to have a local name. And through discussions, we came to a consensus, and people realized that the product was known on the market under the name of MAD, and that's why everybody agreed to give it a name of MAD of Casamance. And so another challenge was to come up with common rules. Drafting list of specifications was also a difficult point. Let me give you an example. When in the list of specification, we needed to choose whether we needed to also include domesticated MAD, because it's also a possibility. The players decided not to integrate this, and this for 2 main reasons. Number one, to avoid that those who already have a lot more money would take over the sector, and also to avoid what happened with cashew nuts, namely to cause deforestation to grow a MAD. In our case, we wanted to achieve a label for the MAD. And so we needed the raw product that would then be processed, because you have different possibilities to put the product on the market. And so we needed to agree on the structure and the nature of the organization that would take care of all these aspects, and also managing the various players of the sector, because you have the processors and you also have the pickers, and you also need to agree on prices. So how much the pickers would ask for the product that they picked, and they would sell the product to the processors. And so that led to very long discussions for a number of years. We needed to get all that organized. And so there was the architecture of the association, which was based on the processors and the pickers. The pickers represent 15% of the members of the association. So it's a bit weak, because there is an enormous potential in Casamance regarding the villages that has a number of pickers. So probably it's likely to grow the number of pickers who are members of the association. So we also got organized in link. So each link represents a different stage. So you have the pickers, you have the processors, you have those who take care of regrouping all the the product. So the processing stage is organized as such. Regarding the units, there is a first control which is performed to check the product, and then the second level of control. You see here the sector before and after the geographical indication was achieved. And you can see the difference. There are controls which are performed before the putting the product on the market. So to recap the challenges, so it's in terms of time and means for achieving the geographical indication. So this is one of the challenges is the consolidation of the economic model. And in the development phase, it was also mobilizing all of the resources. So for the processors, for instance, 100% of the processing needs to be based on some capacity, and there needs to be capacity development here of the units. There needs to be trust and democracy, internal democracy amongst the players, amongst the stakeholders. And I was telling you earlier how difficult it is to keep the proper balance between the two groups, the pickers and the processors. You know, considering picking as a profession is something new. In the past, those who would pick forest fruit had very little consideration from society. They would pick the fruit and then press it into juice. Now it's becoming a real job. And then managing the right to use the name Mat of Casamance. There are other geographical areas, for instance, near Dakar, where they would like to use the name Mat of Casamance so as to put and sell the product on the market. But the association is there to make sure that there is no abuse and that the name would be kept only for genuinely a Casamance product. So products are being regrouped in a unit before being processed. And at each stage, there is control. I hope I kept to the time allotted to me. Thank you, Isolina, and thank you to all the partners. You know, this is the result of a genuine, intelligent collaboration amongst the various partners. And you see their names on the screen. Thank you very much for this presentation, says Isolina. This is a perfect introduction. You perfectly explained how complex it is to achieve geographical indication. It requires developing together with partners, with local communities, with a system of registration of control. So you have administrative steps, and you need to comply with a number of standards, with a system of inclusivity at different levels. So we already understand that there are opportunities, but what the basis that needs to be put in place to be able to achieve a geographical indication. One question, to consider that it is a success, because we've seen the various elements that you suggested in terms of environment, but economically speaking, for producers, compared to a product that would not be covered by geographical indication, can you tell us whether there is a clear difference between a geographically indication product and a non-GI product? Well, you know, in the case of Mat of Casamance, what is remarkable is that the GI facility has provided support for 3 years. This supplemented the support that was already provided by FAO and the World Organization, World Intellectual Property Organization. And there was a little bit of delay in terms of registration, but we needed to conduct market studies and tests. And out of these tests, we realized that the first year, we were able to achieve a 20% markup on the product that we would have received previously. And so that was already a sign of success. You know, in the case of forest fruit, non-lineous forest fruit is what we call the orphan sector. In other words, states generally support only products that have a chance of being exported. You know, like peanuts, mango, um, uh, and peppers, and those are the products that enable the community to be resilient. Let me give an example. In 2019, one of the mayors indicated that without the mat, it would have been difficult for the communities, because when the borders were reopened after COVID, the mat had just ripen, and that was what saved the communities. People were able to go and pick a mat and to sell it, and this enabled the association to make institutions understand that these sectors that were orphan were the first that enable the resilience of the population. So MAD goes beyond the importance of geographical indication. It's really important for the whole geographical area. It gives you a vision as to the safety, food safety of the area. In terms of market, compared to other products, MAD here in Brussels is not as known as Penja pepper that you can already find in supermarkets. So MAD remains a local regional product, or do you have already exports, international exports? Answer. MAD is already on the national market. There is a very strong demand for it. It is intimately associated to a community. The Senegalese diaspora always looks for mat. I mean, whenever somebody travels to Senegal, people from the diaspora will say, please bring me back some mat. So there are more and more foreigners who would like to have a taste of mat. And we were approached recently by Chinese with whom we share more or less the same taste, and they have developed some flavors which are slightly tangy and not too sugary. So there is a national market, but there is a potential export market thanks to our Senegalese diaspora. Thank you very much. Yes, it is true that diaspora is very important for the market.
I see that there are already many exchanges in the chat, so do not hesitate to share and ask questions in Q&A. We'll now go to Guinea. We'll take the questions later on. I hope that the connection of Dr. Leno has a better connection today. He is the technical director of the ADECAM. Mr. Leno, with many others, is a advocate of the coffee industry in Guinea, particularly for the Ziama Manseda coffee. It's a high quality, Robusta variety with a protected geographical indication, PGI. So he has been instrumental, his organization has been instrumental in enhancing the coffee value chain by connecting the local producers with international markets, improving the livelihoods of small and medium-sized enterprises and other players, but with an anchorage of the MAD of Senegal with local communities. He's also committed to sustainability, as all the panelists of today. I hope, Mr. Florent, Faya, Leno, you have a better connection to introduce, to showcase this very interesting project, and our colleagues will share the screen for you. Mr. Leno, you have the floor if you are there. Yes, do you receive me? Yes, we do. Okay. So go ahead, please. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. My name is Leno Faya Florent. I'm a technical director of the association ADECAM, which of the IGP Cafe Ziamama Center. My presentation will focus on the process of enrichment of the Ziamama Center coffee and its introduction in the international market penetration of Ziamama Center coffee, and by the end I will present my conclusions. So next slide, please. Talking about process for registering Ziamama Center coffee, the construction process started in 2003 with the help of the Coopérative Agricole de Commercialisation et d'Approvisionnement, known as WACO. This cooperation was at the basis of the settling the registration of Ziamama Center Coffee as a PGI. It was driven by a desire to promote the quality of Guinean coffee, in particular to overcome the challenges of its discounted price, which was between 20 and 40%, and to provide better remuneration than producers. It has benefited, the cooperative has benefited from the support of structures within the framework of the African Organization of Intellectual Property, the Geographical Indications Program, and local institutions, in particular the Guinean Agricultural or Agronomic Research Institute and others. It became the organization for the new Ziamama Center coffee sector with the framework, within the framework of the GI approach through the ADECAM. And then we had to needed bodies to support the project of GI. And this needed to set up first a board of directors for the ADECAM, then a supervisory committee and a quality control committee. The board of directors is the supreme instance of the association, which takes decisions and is promoting the follow-up of the the GI, sorry. The supervisory committee is supervising the actions set out by the board of directors, and the quality control committee is made up by people trained in the tasting of coffee, and before the coffee reaches the international market. So there is this quality control committee who tastes the coffee before delivering it on the international market. And the process of structuring of this sector was led by the Comité National des Indications Géographiques until and we lost Mr. Leno. So, and this depends of the validation of the documents by the National GI Committee. In the project, it was necessary to have a specification list, and it are these instances that were set up, and the National GI Committee validated a document for the recognition of Ziamama Center Coffee by the EUIPO. The recognition of the Ziamama Center Coffee by the OAPI after the validation of the specification by the National GI Committee, as I said before, there was a decision to approve the product, and a application for registration was presented by the ADECAM to the WAPI and sent to the Minister for Trade and Industry via the National Liaison Structure. In each country where the OAPI has it's said there are national liaison structures. These cells are there to convey the documents between the applicant and the OAPI. So all the documents need to pass through this national liaison structure. The GI registration document was signed on March 14, 2014 in Yaoundé by the Director General of the OAPI. And thereby the Macenta Coffee got its first PGI. The product features are, among others, it's a Robusta coffee that we find on the Ziama mountain, and it has a tangy, slightly bitter flavor with a high aromatic intensity and a strong and fine persistent aroma. So these characteristics have been the reason why the committee and the producers introduced their application for a PGI. After the recognition of the PGI by the OAPI, the ADECAM has benefited from several supports. In 2015, there was a capacity building support for players in the sector, a support for fair trade production and marketing, internal quality control equipment, financed by the Rio Tinto Foundation and co-financed by the AFD, with support from IRAM and MGE. So to say that the recognition of the Ziama Macenta coffee has allowed for this. And we, without these, with the financing of 2015, we were able to progress in our goals. In 2016, the Woko GIE cooperative was awarded Fair Trade SPP certification. SPP is a symbol for small producers. And we lost Mr. Leno again. In 2017, there was a Fair Trade certification audit carried out by FLOCERT. And this shows that after that we obtained this recognition by the PGI, we were able to export for the first time, where the producers obtained a 7.5% higher price, which means that the added value on the price of the coffee was acquired. The advantages of a PGI certification in our case was that it guaranteed the product quality for the consumers. The advantages of the certifications, I said, was guarantee a product quality for the consumers, as I just said. For the cafe, we have two cooperatives that we work with. These two cooperatives are made of coffee producers, and each producer. Sorry, the sound is breaking up, and we can't interpret what is being said. So the producers are. There's awareness raised in the producers not to use chemical products, and in at least 2 or 3 times per year, the land has to be turned over so that they can use natural manure. We also have to make sure that we can add value to the product through this certification. We also want to ensuring benefit in terms of image for the consumers, build the differentiation and trusted, gain a competitive edge by improving brand image. These are all advantages that we are collecting after our certification as a PGI. Build loyalty among producers and make them more competitive. This is also an advantage that we obtain for the producers. Encourage the development of quality training. We have recruited animators for the producers, which are improving the quality on the products, and then mitigating quality, safety, environmental risks. As I said, the producers are made aware not using chemical fertilizers, and also to contribute to the improvement of the environment. I'm sorry again, we lose track of what is being said by Mr. Leno. Really sorry about that. When we talk about the penetration of the Ziama Macenta coffee on the international market, all operators who want to export Ziama coffee must become a member of the association. A traceability system is set up to track the volumes produced and marketed at various stages of the value chain. There's a control plan in place. And this allows us to follow the producers on the field. I'm sorry, the sound is really too bad to make much sense of what they're saying, Mr. Leno. There's a control. Labels are produced according to the production forecast of each producer to make sure that the quality is really followed from the field down to the coffee shop. Traceability and quality control are important, and to control the origin, we need to be able to trace the origin of the coffee. Oh, we don't get any sound anymore. And this shows us that a product comes from a specific place and that the producer. I lost the sound. I don't know what happens, but I lost the sound. As I said, oh, I lost the sound.
Sorry, no sound is coming to the interpreters any longer. Sorry for that.
J'entends rien non plus. Et c'est pas mon micro qui
There's no
coupé.
sound anymore. Sorry, there is no sound coming from the speaker any longer. Breakdown of audio. Oh, the interpreter is going to simply read the slide. So conclusion, the GI approach is likely to create wealth and sustainability in the use of resources. And Guinea's Ziama Macenta coffee is following a promising path in terms of economic and socio-cultural results, as well as raising awareness among stakeholders about the development of the product and its governance. Our plan next is to get into the coffee processing business and have a coffee roasting and grinding center. Mr. Leno, we cannot hear you. So
The connection comes and goes. So thank you to the interpreters. They really can't follow, but if you could finish in 1 minute, because the connection is extremely variable. The detail of your slides helps a lot to follow what you're saying. Mr. Leno, do you hear us? Do you wish to add something in 1 minute? Yes.
interpreters have no sound, but we are seeing some pictures illustrating what Mr. Leno was describing, and we can see here growers in the fields. So producers are being aware that they shouldn't just cut the vegetation and use chemical products, but they need to use machetes regularly every year. This activity is often conducted by women, especially for the drying of the coffee. And this is my last image. You see how the coffee is being packaged after processing. Yes, the packaging is quite interesting, says Isolina. Thank you very much for all your efforts. We've tried on several occasions to get a better connection with you, because this is an interesting case, as you pointed out. It's one of the first to get the geographical indication. Mr. Leno, we're well aware that this is none of your doing. It shows the reality that you have to face on the ground. But we were lucky because you have produced some highly detailed slides, and the interpreters tried to translate what they were seeing on the slides. I hope this helped the participants understand what you were saying. So maybe if you have questions for Mr. Leno, it would be better if you asked him in the chat. This is interesting for organic production, for export markets, and for all processed produce. So we will get back to this later. I would like to introduce you now to the last speaker, Jean-Marie Sopp, who the Secretary General of the Penja Pape PGI from the Penja Pape PGI Promotion Association. Jean-Marie Sopp, who is also Secretary General of COLEAD, this is to say that COLEAD is heavily involved in all these projects. So he's our Secretary General, and he plays a pivotal role in enhancing the quality and international recognition of this unique product. His efforts have been instrumental in securing the protected geographical indication PGI status for Penja pepper, which has significantly boosted its market value and export potential. And so promotion and sustainability aspects have to be highlighted. This is the perfect transition with the previous panel, because you are also Secretary General of COLEAD, and COLEAD is an organization that has conducted programs with l'Agence Française de Développement and the European Commission to support small growers and in achieving a general indications. So Mr. Sopp, thank you very much for speaking to us all the way from Cameroon. It's a pleasure to give you the floor. And we're going to share your slides.
Thank you, Isolina. The pleasure is mine too. So I will go very quickly over my slides, because the colleagues that took the floor before me to be explain in depth the PGI systems, in particular in Africa today. So I will simply go very quickly over the case of the Penja pepper. So this is the plan of my presentation, the outline of the presentation. We have the creation and missions of our association. The second item will be the steps towards a PGI. And then on a small table, we will see the impact of the PGIs, the activities that we carried out from the inception to date to support this PGI and the work in process. So, as a matter of fact, the Association of Penja Peppers Producers, I will go very quickly over it. I'm not going to come up on the explanations and philosophy that our colleagues already went through. The Penja Pepper Producers Association was set up to mobilize energies in support of the Penja Pepper labeling project. That was its main aim. Until 2004, that is before that we had the idea of going for a PGI, the growing of Penja pepper was assured by locally by a handful of unorganized producers. And so what we set up with the association was to take on 5 main missions. The first one that I'm calling M1 here is to support the Penja pepper labeling project. The second mission that we took was to develop the value chain and related activities through the professionalization of the operators. And when we talk about operators, it are all the people that are involved in different elements of the chain, the nurserymen, the growers, and the distributors, to name just a few. and the most important ones who work in the Penja pepper value chain. Our third mission, M3, was to promote and enhance the Penja pepper by setting up a traceability system. It was the first thing to do. My colleague from Guinea talked about traceability as an essential factor, and by building a grading and packaging center. That is because we wanted to cluster the production in one single place and to grade it before bringing the product to the consumer. The fourth mission that we took up was to the protection of the label to scrupulous compliance with the list of specifications, which has been mentioned before, and especially the fight against fraud and counterfeiting. We know what happens when a product becomes very popular. It has imitators and all those who like to do things easily don't hesitate to misuse the names. So we wanted to fight against counterfeiting both inside and outside Cameroon. And our fifth mission was, which is essential, is the promotion of the Penja pepper PGI label locally and internationally. So these were the 5 missions that we decided to devote our efforts to. So what were the steps that we followed towards the Penja pepper PGI? After creating the association of operators, that is the nursery mangroves and distributors, we benefited from the support of the OAPI through the PAMPIC project financed by the AFD, and with the technical assistance of the CIRAD as the first technical assistant. We also received the support of the Iraq from Cameroon, and these 2 organizations gave us their technical assistance. We were also accompanied by the Cameroon government, all the ministries that were involved, the agricultural ministry with President Bonaparte, and the CONABIG, which is the National Committee for the Geographical Identification, Protected Geographical Indication, the Ministry of Industry and of Trade. All of these ministries were involved and collaborated with us afterwards. We defined the geographical area using as parameters soil, the appropriate agroecological data. I'm not going to go into detail. I believe everyone understands what I'm talking about. And then we drew up and validated a list of specifications for this Penja pepper PGI. And this, we were also supported by the co-lead. As a small typo in the slide. You have to substitute the NC by a D, and several organizations were supporting us. The co-lead with its STDF program, who demands to be able to support quality in all the markets. We also got the support of other organizations like the LUKIDP, working specially for quality in the United Kingdom after the Brexit. And we also got the support of the FAP, which helped us particularly to go towards a European PGI, and other NGOs from Cameroon and Africa, which were very interested by the Penja pepper PGI. And so all these contributions led to the registration of Penja pepper as the first PGI in the OAPI area. So we have the first PGI in the sub-Saharan region in Africa. And in May 2023, we were also registered as a PGI in the European Union space. Therefore, we may wear both logos on our packaging, the OAPI and the European Union logo. Okay. Let's have a look now at the benefits of the PGI. Understand what this brought about. At the beginning, before the PGI, people said that the Penja pepper was growth everywhere. Now it is only grown in a delimited space. And before the GPI, there were less than 50 hectares where this culture was taking place. Now it's above 600 hectares. The production was inferior to or less than 50 tons per year. Today, we're at 400 tons per year. Before the PGI, the production was less than 0.5 tons per hectare. And now our yield is approximately as an average, 1 ton per hectare. 10% were sold out of Cameroon before the PGI. Now it's more than 40%. We had 20 producers before the PGI. Now there are more than 350 producers, and the price has followed, and we went from 4 euros per kilogram to 3 euros per kilogram. And now so we went from 4 to 8 euros per kilogram to 23 euros per kilogram. So this speaks by itself to say that the impact was very positive for the population. The activities carried out regarded the product and its presentation. All packaging is now stamped with a PGI logo, and the consumers recognize it. We put this logo on our packaging because we worked in order to be able to concentrate all the production in a grading center. This presentation of the product and other leads to a reduction in fraud and counterfeiting, which were hampering the producers' efforts. As for the production area, the development of terroir has followed. From one year to the next, there has been an increase in the number of operators in the sector and in the area under cultivation. And this contributes to increase the revenue of the terroir. On top of that, the public has recognized our efforts, and this led to a good public-private partnership between local authorities, law enforcement agencies, banks, and industry players through the Penja Pepper PGI cluster. which we may say is a reality today. So the producers of Penja pepper in Cameroon receives a different consideration if we compare it to other produce. We also, in the idea of protecting our pepper, we created a cooperative which provides services to our members and generates income. And these activities, this income, help empower the producers to protect the label. Now, as for the work in progress, I said I would be very brief. We go on with the identification of players. We haven't totally identified all the producers, and we go on. And all the plots to be able to improve our traceability. We also are trying to build in order to guarantee the sanitary and phytosanitary qualities of the Penja pepper. We are building post-harvest processing centers. We have 5 basins, and we are now setting up an external audit. The internal audit is already producing its results, but in order to give more guarantees to the consumers, we are setting up an external audit. And finally, we drafted a communication and marketing strategy, communication that we are already implementing in the field, so that this exceptional product be valued more than in the past. So this is, in a few words, what I wanted to show with this image. All the ministers who are extremely happy for the European Union to recognize the Penja pepper PGI. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Jean-Marie, and for having built on what the previous speaker said. And the poivre de Penja pepper is something that I can buy even in Brussels. It's very easy to find. And you also told the differences of what happened before and after the granting of the PGI. We see the differences in the yields and the local and the benefits of the increase of prices for the local producers, and everything is related to marketing and the image of this Starship program. So all the players need to count on the support of the different ministries and the players in the value chain. So this external control is very important, but it's quite interesting, whatever you show. So if Margot, who works with you closely, wants to add something, we will talk about it later on. I'm now giving the floor very quickly to Anne, because she also had other commitments today. She accepted to be present with us today. You mentioned it very often. The the ADF has been FD, sorry, has been mentioned several times. And Chetaille is a specialist in agriculture, forestry, and sustainable development. She is project team leader at the Agence Française Développement, and worked previously with WWF France, and worked on the agricultural risk management, environmental sustainability, and very closely with very small farmers, and on the climate resilience. We haven't talked about it in the environmental part, but it's very important. So AFD is a player you can't do without in Europe, but also in Africa. and you have supported almost all the GIs in a certain amount of countries and you have a very important experience. My colleagues will also show some of documents that you have produced. I told that we will, with a list of resources and reports, but there's an evaluation of the FD in 2022 and a contribution to sustainable development, because of course this is an important information, but what does this bring in its different dimensions? And so I thank you for giving us your input on how the players who are present today and listen to different groups, how these players, how the EFD and other partners like CIRAD and others support the GI in Africa, and what kind of support you can give. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Isolina, and thank you for inviting me, which I received from my colleague Jean-René Cuzon, who usually works with you, and I believe he attends this conference. I will tell you about the support AFD has been providing over the last 20 years. And I would like to get back to some of the lessons we can draw from what happened back in 2022, and that he mentioned already as well as in the chat, and there were several GI products that we supported as sustainable products. Now, as far as the AFD is concerned, we've been supporting some 12 projects, mainly in Africa, but also in Southeast Asia, in the Middle East, and also in the Balkan areas, with an amount of commitment which is close to 25 million euros. So we're talking about a strengthening of commercial capacity. This is also COLEAD's goal, to promote trade exchanges in Togo and other countries in development. So a number of countries have benefited from this. So there were 3 GIs that were presented today that benefited from our support, either for general indication supported by CIRAG, and another one from PAMPID, which I will talk about in a minute. So the idea was to support the regulation framework, capacity building of institutions in charge of GIs. Ils ont bloqué le truc, je ne sais pas. Il y a quelqu'un qui a chipoté, on n'a pas en français, il me le faut en français. So the ministry has established a framework to support the GIs and other products associated to specific places. So how to establish the list of specification, and because the idea is to avoid having dormant GIs. So a few words about PAMPIG, which is the support facility that is given to the African intellectual property organization. It is now being completed. We're talking about a bit more than in excess of 4 million euros that were given by OIP to provide accompaniment to member countries wanting to have GIs. So for Penja pepper, coffee from Cameroon that was presented, and also national players who are involved in the promotion and development of GIs. For the second stage of PAMPI, we continued with accompaniment of GIs that were started in phase 1, capacity building of national committees for the support of GIs, and we supported 6 new products in achieving this. So Oyewole in Côte d'Ivoire, banana from Guinea, Gari Salvao in Benin, and nanas pain sucre, which is a very specific activity. And we should mention that the project in phase 1 was co-funded by OAPI. So regarding the geographical indication, it's a special fund of 6 million euros, which is focused on a call for tender in excess of 4 million euros to fund activities supporting geographical indication. This is in link with Pan-African activities, with the idea of strengthening institutions to achieve geographical indications. It's really an innovating tool that was developed and put in place back in 2021. So we are midway now of the existence of this facility, and the envelope for the call for tender has been used, and it should be noted that there is also a research component, because we are also co-funding some theses written by students from CIRAD. And regarding the call for tender, there are 10 projects that were selected following screening or selection process. The projects are quite diverse, which is the interesting part of this facility, because different initiatives emerged from the field, and so we avoided some of the difficulties that were experienced before when we had too much of a top-down approach. So where it was the ministry and national level that was making all the decisions, and when we did not have enough link with the field. So there were projects in Senegal with the MAD of Majak of Casamance, but in various countries, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and also for MAD, a non-linear product with Agneau de Carreau meat sector, coffee, rice in Côte d'Ivoire. And we should also point out that we also wanted to highlight some geographical indications that could have some outlet at on the local and regional market, not just on the international one, because we realized, following the assessment that was conducted, that it would be quite complex to have access to the international market, and it would be secure also for ecological reasons and for consistency reason in the fight against climate change, to secure regional and national markets. So the public private partnership was successful also, and the original part, the original aspect of this facility is that there is a technical assistance provided by a CIRAD and a number of experts who've been recruited to help the project leaders. Isolina is appearing on the screen, so that might mean I've been speaking for too long. The second part, so rapidly, and well, I'd like to get back to some aspects of sustainable development, which appeared following some of the projects that were conducted. And this was briefly mentioned in some of the presentations. We need to insist on the impact that can be generated in terms of revenues and economic benefits. This, of course, is important to the stakeholders, but it's also important to take time to properly design and develop the geographical indications, taking into consideration the market that these GIs are supposed to serve. Now, the social dimension is also to be taken into consideration because we should not underestimate tensions that might appear. We need to explain that with the GIs, there are some who will benefit, those who take part in the project, and there will be people who will not benefit. So it all depends on how the list of specification is drafted. Some list of specification have not been properly drafted, especially in the pineapple sector, where some practice were, let's put it this way, more polluting. Let me go straight to recommendations and conclusions. Access to market is central if you want the GI sector to be sustainable. Another thing is to have structured stakeholders to make sure that there will be sustainability, checks and controls to have enforceability and enforcement of the contract, control by the state also. These are some of the challenges that we were confronted with. Once the GI is registered, of course, it has to be supported by the country, by the administration of the country. There would be so much more to say, but I will stop there. Thank you, Anne. This was extremely interesting. Many resources are being mobilized because there are many research organizations like CIRAD that are involved and which are very much needed. I can see that Jean-René Cuzon is present. I've known him for a long time. He is in charge of a team dealing with project in the agricultural development, rural development, biodiversity division. He's a specialist in these fields and he often works with us. So Jean-René, if you would like to take the floor, do not hesitate to ask for the floor, and thank you for contributing to this facility. So you've heard, ladies and gentlemen, the main recommendations. I recommend you read them because the assessment, the evaluation phase is really important. Of course, a GI is attractive, but look at the reality that comes from the field. So thank you for highlighting that, Anne. Without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to the colleagues of the European Commission.
Benjamin Vallin is the International Relations Officer at DG AGRI at the European Commission. You would have heard as well that the European Commission is a key partner and a key stakeholder in the geographical indications, of course, in the EU, but outside the EU through the development part. And you know, I think it's very good to remember today that the EU has other partners like AFD and others are lead development partners in the world. And in these times, you know, of really changes that we don't all like, it's a key to mention that, and is the development cooperation is a critical part of you know, the collaboration, win-win collaboration between the North and the South. So Benjamin is an international relations officer at DG AGRI. He has a strong background, of course, in agronomy, but also in international trade. And he has been really very instrumental in shaping agriculture policies and promoting sustainable practices within the EU. And you know that sustainability is a key part in any EU policies, and we are very pleased with that. And before that, you have the different roles in market, Directorate General of Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship, SMEs, etc. So of course, all is very much linked, as mentioned by the previous speakers, in the IG geographical indication GIs debates. So if you could, from what has been said before, add from your side, what is the kind of support that the European Commission brings? You have many different ones, including working with African governments, regional organizations, etc. And how, you know, the farmers, cooperatives, you know, etc., can even leverage more, you know, the access, premium access to European markets, and any support you can provide. And knowing, as Anne said it very rightly, that export market is one of them. I mean, it's not the only one. It's you work in different markets, you know, along. So, and thank you very much, because you were away and you just arrived yesterday and you still jump to share your expertise and your knowledge. Thank you, Benjamin. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Isolina, and thank you for the nice presentation. It's a pleasure to be with you, actually. A lot has been said already. A lot has been said, but just to set a bit the frame, why the EU has been such a for a long time for a strong advocate of geographical indications internationally. First of all, in the EU, starting with ourselves, and we definitely recognize the economic and cultural and social value of the geographical indications. Just to quote a few figures, in the EU, GIs, they are really a cornerstone of the agri-food system. They generate sales worth around 75 billion per year, 75 billion euros. So that's huge. And when we look at exports, GIs are around 15% of all EU agri-food and drink exports in value. So they clearly contribute to the renown and the image of Europe across the world. And beyond this economic weight, we see GIs also as a tool to support rural areas and to provide a higher income for our producers, for our farmers. Because, you know, on average, again, in the European Union, GI products are sold twice the price of similar conventional products. So that's really a big difference. Of course, it's not the same price difference for all products. Some are much more successful than others. So this is part of all the thinking on the strategy that you have to think through from the start. But this is it. It shows that there is potential. And this is why we see GIs as a tool, but as a very powerful tool for farmers to valorize their products. And with this, GIs actually boost rural employment and they sustain traditional knowledge. And in many EU regions, GIs have revitalized local economies and boosted tourism. So this is just to set the frame, and I strongly believe, and we're many to believe, that just like in European regions and localities around the world, there are many countries, if not all countries, that have local products, local gems, you know, that would deserve to be protected and promoted in that way. And so this is why we are very much willing to share our positive experience as regards geographical indications with Africa and with the rest of the world, and the EU and the member states, because we've heard AFD speak for France, and we very much value that it's not only the EU but also the member states as a Team Europe, as we say in Team Europe approach. We do provide a lot of technical assistance to many partner countries around the globe to support the development of national policies on geographical indications. So projects of this type look into various aspects of GI policies, ranging from establishing sound legal frameworks where this is needed, because not all countries are at the same stage as OAP countries. Like we have heard many examples from the OAP region right now, but many countries are still to get there in terms of the legal framework. So legal framework is one. Then you have the capacity building for the administrations, but also for all the stakeholders, the producers to start with. Also the design of control systems, the enforcement mechanisms, and how, because enforcement, the whole idea of protecting intellectual property, like a geographical indication it doesn't work if you don't have a proper control and enforcement system. So all this is linked and needs to be done. Now, if I go to Africa specifically, well, on the political level, the European Union works very closely with the African Union Commission. We have supported from its very inception the African Union Continental Strategy for Geographical Indications in Africa. And if you look at things even more broadly, the European Union wants to develop a full-fledged economic partnership with Africa as a continent. So that continent-to-continent partnership, it's based on key policy pillars, and we have what we call the Global Gateway Africa-Europe Investment Package, and this is a very important point. It's a priority area of economic integration, investment, and it was part of the joint vision 2030 agreed in 2022 at the EU-African Union Summit. And so we're speaking about economic integration in Africa, so that's a priority of this partnership. And the implementation of the AFCFTA is particularly relevant to that. And the EU and the member states, as I said, in the Teams Europe approach, we support the operationalization of the various AFCFTA protocols with an initiative that is totaling about 1.1 billion euros. So that's huge, I must say. And that includes support dedicated to intellectual property rights in general, and in particular, what we're talking about today, geographical indications. And for that, we work notably, but not only, through the project called AFRIPI, which Monique is representing here today with us. So thank you, Monique, for being with us. So you said it already, Isolina, we provide support at the continental level, at the regional level, and at the national level. So that means working with various African stakeholders, starting with the African Union Commission, I named it already, the AFCFTA Secretariat, and also the two regional IP organizations, OIP and AGRI, and also national authorities. So beyond that, we also, because we're not the only ones in the world, so we work, of course, with our partners in our member states, like AFD, but we work also with other international partners, and you can think of EUIPO, FAO, and there are others, and I will forget many, and I'm sorry for them, but they are there. UNECTAD is one, Swiss IP would be one also, so we try to coordinate a bit the work of the various partners there. Or to coordinate with them. No, we're not coordinating everybody, we're coordinating with them and consulting each other and informing each other of what we're doing so that we have complementary activities, of course. Now, in practical terms, because I think this is what is interesting for you, we, as European Union or our member states, we provide technical assistance on all the aspects of the continental strategy on GIs, the African Union strategy. I won't spell out all of them because maybe we would need much time on this, and actually Monique would be much better placed to do that than myself. But let me stress three aspects linked to the three elements that I've already raised. One, I mentioned regulatory frameworks. Recently, over the last years, actually, AFRIPI has worked a lot, notably, for instance, with AGRI to develop a model law for AGRI member states to introduce in their law systems to protect geographical indications. So this is a big work. It still has to be approved by the AGRI leadership, but the product, the draft product is there. I said the legal framework is not enough. You need also to build the capacity of the administration and of the beneficiaries of the system. And we have been active on that. And Monique has worked a lot on a guidance document, a manual that is available in 4 languages, French, Arabic, English, and Portuguese, available for free on the AFRIPI website. Just, feel free to use it as much as you would like. And then the third aspect I wanted to mention in terms of type of support that we provide is to work on specific geographical indications, a bit what Anne Chetaille presented on the OIP GIs. So we, as in our projects, we can help to identify potential GI products, or to go down to preparing the technical files in view of the registration of products. And so we are working on many different products. I've not counted them really, but there are work ongoing or to be launched very soon in Seychelles, ongoing in Mauritius, almost finalized in Gabon. We are working in Ghana, in Mozambique, and many others. So there really a lot is ongoing there. It would be really too long to list them all. So these is very broadly speaking the type of support that we provide as EU. But beyond that, technical assistance, I would say also that there is the other aspect that you have mentioned, Isolina, about getting the protection on export markets, and the EU can be an export market for those willing to export to the EU. And on this, we are very much open to protect geographical indications from non-EU countries in our territory. We see that really as a win-win process. And actually, the geographical indications from non-European countries have 3 different ways to get protection in Europe when our own producers only have 1. So the possibility, the option that is open to both European and non-European producers is to get direct registration under the EU domestic regulations on geographical indications. And that's the case, for instance, that's the path that has followed Poivre de Penja. Congratulations for that from Cameroon. This is not the easiest path, I must say, but it's available. Second possibility, we negotiate bilateral agreements on the mutual protection of geographical indications with partner countries that are willing to do so. We can do that in context of free trade agreements and economic partnership agreements, for instance. We have an example of that with South Africa, protocol to the SADC EU economic partnership agreement, where we protect a number of South African GIs in Europe, and that's the case, for instance, for rooibos, among others. And the third possibility for non-EU GIs to get protection in Europe is to get registered internationally via the Geneva Act, what we call the Geneva Act. So it's the World Intellectual Property Organization that is managing an international register of GIs, and the EU is member of this act, and so is OIP, and so is Djibouti and other countries in the African continent, Ghana, for instance. So there is this possibility. For the time being, we have protected in Europe, I think, GIs from Tunisia. I can think of Fig de Djeba. So this is an example. And of course, well, your country needs to be part of the Geneva Act if you want to access these routes. And so it's something we regularly encourage countries to do, to seek accession to the Geneva Act. Voila, so these 3 possibilities for the protection of non-EU GIs, it's not purely theoretical. Actually, these tools are very much successful, in particular the bilateral trade agreement, but the other 2 also are successful. And in fact, if you look at the big numbers, one third of the geographical indications that are protected in Europe come from non-European countries. 1/3 of them. So we're really open to share, this tool with everyone. And I see there really a big opportunity for African GI producers, not everybody, but those who think that their GI would be, would win in exporting to Europe. It would not be the case of every GI, but if you see an interest to export, well, let's seek for the protection of your names in Europe. Voila, this is what I wanted to say today. I think geographical indications clearly are a positive tool for rural development, and we have a lot to share and a lot that we can build together to really and fully reap the benefits of GIs. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. That was extremely interesting. Unfortunately, we are limited by time, but we're going to share more resources because this is really interesting. The European Union and its various countries have made interesting experience which are known throughout the world, and for years and years of course, they were confronted to a number of challenges also, but it's interesting to promote this sort of exchange with Africa, to learn more about certain products, which Anne mentioned that we never heard of before. So it's difficult sometimes to associate those names to products. There is an incredible richness, an incredible wealth of products, and there are many possibilities of export towards the EU, which is a highly interesting market. So thank you very much, Benjamin. I'm sure many people will contact you. Now, without further ado, we are registering a little bit of delay. We are going to listen to Dr. Monique Bagal. She's an international expert in the field of geographical indications. She's based in Zimbabwe, and she's a legal expert, especially, so that means the legal part is of great importance. So legal framework is a must, legal protection, and Mr. Somp mentioned it, when you're successful, then many people would like to copy you without skipping some of the constraints. Dr. Bagal has worked a lot with many African countries on long-term missions, but also with other countries. And this is interesting because this involves countries from the Caribbean area. We have participants from the Caribbean area, and I will give you the floor so that you can supplement what has been said so far by saying new things, especially on the legal part. There was a question about what's the difference between geographical indication, product protection, and a certification. We don't have that much time. I know that you are in the field and you're working in a difficult circumstances because you had some difficulties in trying to connect. I will try to answer all of your questions, says Monique. My purpose is to tell you about the AFRIP project, Intellectual Property Rights and Innovation in Africa. And I hope this will inspire some of the entrepreneurs who are listening to us, because there are many opportunities regarding intellectual property. So as Benjamin said, this is a project that was created and updated and implemented by the European Union to facilitate intra-African trade with the European Union. So the idea, AFRIP, is to implement intellectual property, so that means trademarks and different elements of protection. So geographical indications, I mean, if you want to have a specific presentation, we need to understand what it is and what it is not a geographical indication, in order to understand what opportunities could be generated. We know, for instance, that in AGRI is indicative of an origin, of a provenance, whereas a certification is a process. It's not. So GI is a sort of certification, like the organic label, the red label in France, or fair trade label elsewhere. So the GI is based on a certification when it's registered. So a geographical indication is not a trademark. It's not vegetal variety or geographical information. It's not a patent either. And so if you look at the GIs that have been accompanied by AFRIP, we have Ilang, for instance, coming from Comore Island. This was one of the components of Chanel Numéro 5, a well-known perfume. And so there are many countries that would not be covered by geographical indications. And we have also spirulina, traditional spirulina, which is processed and which has specific qualities. And so should traditional spirulina could become a traditional product, processed, organic. And then you have also a special stone from Gabon with patronymic trademarks or industrial designs. You see that these tools of intellectual property can apply to champagne, to other brand names. So it gives you a form of freedom if you are a producer. Same thing for the from the loin cloth protected by the AGRI, Baole, and then certain designs are protected by industrial designs and copyright. And one entrepreneur had an idea of creating this little machine to create rosettes of this particular type of cheese called the tête de moine. Then you have the coffee Kenya, which is so rich, so Kenyan. It's a variety developed for more intensive coffee production with fewer losses due to disease or pest. So the real question is that in the countries you have Ilang Ilang from Comore, Pierre de Mbigo in Gabon, Kilishi from Niger, the white shrimp from Mozambique. I don't know whether this is inspiring for the audience, you know, in terms of intellectual property or elsewhere. So what is interesting is to valorize byproducts. For instance, this entrepreneur for Benin was able to valorize a snack with oil of agonlin, and another brand name which has become extremely well known. And then we have here Poutargue Imragen, which is processed by women. Sucre de Maurice, sugar from Mauritius, which was mentioned before, but it can also be a place of sale, and which is important for terroir products, such as here, this case in Morocco. You might sell their typical products of the country, but also products from Benin and Morocco. So it's a huge opportunity which is represented here. In Egypt, we worked with Egypt, and they created restaurants called Eish Omai in Cairo to showcase a local cuisine. Another interesting example and a warning: beware of the use of names in or derived products, which means that some processors are trying to use mat from Casamance. Of course, it means it's flattering for the producers that their name is being used. But look in the Ushuaia shampoo, they mention Ilang plant, but are they really using it? Urban Outfitters has been taken to court by the Navajo community tribe for using their name and their pattern. Also, the cotton from Egypt, and you have some blacklists of those who are authorized or not authorized from using the GI. So there is a very specific list of specification which people don't necessarily have access to. Mr. Sop mentioned it. There is also an increased awareness of the legislative framework, because there are limitations to the use of names protected here. And then in Africa, regarding geographical indications, people lack the knowledge. So there is a lot to be done there. It was mentioned by Mr. Tahirou, and it would be good to have an office of products of African origin to represent the name of producers in SECAV. There are some areas which are still unexplored, such as online sale of geographical indications of products from Africa, marketplace, a social network, also the entry of new technologies with QR codes. There are many opportunities there, and also with the blockchains. Thank you. This was extremely rapid. I hope you were able to follow. Well, thank you very much for your effort in trying to stick to the time allotted. We have few questions because we've been providing information which was very much needed. Monique, I wanted to refer to one of the questions. What are the criteria for a product from the terroir to start the process to become a PGI? So legally speaking, how does that work? Well, it all depends on the country where the request is being made. So you need to consider the legislation of the country of which you're asking for protection. It varies from grouping to grouping. The grouping that founded the geographic indication. Sometimes you have a public authority, but it really depends on the country and the grouping. Right. So this is something that was explained by Mr. Tahirou, because it's a collective effort. It's easier to regroup our efforts rather than working solo. And so that's the whole point of the GIs. It's a cooperation, a cooperative process. I would like to give the floor to the speakers of the first panel because there were a few questions for them. I want to thank you for answering in writing in the chat, but I want to ask you whether you have some words of conclusion that you would like to add that were inspired by what you heard. So for Mr. Tahirou, there was a question about processing, the challenge of processing of MAD from Casamance. Have you had some difficulties with the processing phase of MAD from Casamance? Then there was also, without going into too much details, the details of the contact you have with the administration in charge of the forest that you have to work in. And what about the lowering of prices of pepper? Did that affect Penja price? So Tahirou. Well, thank you, Isolina, and thank you for those questions. Well, regarding the processing that we have, the processing units which are generally managed by women. These are small units most of the time, and they suffer from lack of equipment, you know, sterilizers and pasteurizers. So what they need is increase their production capacity in order to be able to process more products. So this is associated to these problems. And there is also a problem in terms of storage, because forest products are seasonal products, so it's difficult to store them. And they are in competition with what we call here banaba, who are roving traders, and they bring their products to Dakar and use all of the storing units, and they have freezers of 1,000 liters, but for these to be effective, they need to have solar systems to be able to preserve the products. Now, regarding the relationship with the services of the administration of forest, well, from an administrative point of view, forests are managed by forest services. We have tried to have a system of control on fresh products. And here, of course, forest services play a key role, especially regarding control of picking and pickers, because some people like to have it easy. They go in the forest and they cut the liana to try to be able to harvest as many fruit as possible. Of course, this actually damages the liana, and if the liana has been cut like this, then for the next 2 years, it will limit its production. So there has to be a good relationship, a good working relationship with the forest services, with the administration. My main message is the following. Don't believe that the GIs are a sort of ET approach. I mean, we need to integrate politics and politicians from our various states. They need to be integrated to the programs. Hygiene, for instance, is a reality, and this is important for the sector, and we needed to have the support of the state for the hygiene aspect. I think that we need to integrate GIs in the development policies and the partners that support those sectors, such as AFD and other FAO partners. They can sign agreements and integrate the users in the sustainable development tools. Thank you, Tahirou. You're right, as Benjamin pointed out, also within the framework of the EU, it could be part of the APEs and the free trade agreements to institutionalize this, so that it's not just an added thing. Mr. Sop, Penja pepper was registered and recognized, and I now can buy it easily in Belgium, in Brussels. The question was it affected, was it impacted by the decreasing price of pepper? Oh yes, indeed, we were impacted by this decrease in price. What we need to point out is that it's important to understand the cause of this decrease. At national level, it was because of fraud and counterfeiting. During my presentation, I highlighted that we are strengthening the controls And we're lucky because, contrary to Senegal, the administration is heavily involved because it's considered as a national heritage, the Penja pepper. And, you know, a specific festival has been organized by the country. Also, measures were taken to prevent fraudsters, and those who import whatever pepper and try to give it the name of Penja. Now, the country has adopted severe sanctions for those who infringe upon the GIs, and slowly but surely now it's beginning to be put in place and to be known. Thank you. Thank you for insisting on the gender dimension, also the role of women. This was pointed out in the chat. And whatever is associated with tourism, agritourism, and gastronomy, which generates a lot of money. And of course, for those involved in agricultural products, this has a role to play. I don't know whether there were any direct questions for our speaker from Guinea, from Mr. Leno. Are you with us? Were you, Florent, were you able to, would you like to add anything, any conclusions?
Yes, I'm there. And do you have anything to add if the connection allows for it? No. I just want to thank you to have me given the opportunity to participate in this session. I'm really sorry that the connection was not too kind for me to express myself as I wished. And we will see how for future occasions we can improve this connection. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. All the documents will be shared anyway. Indeed, there were many publications on the Zaimama Center coffee. We'll share them also. We're getting at the closure of this session. So if there's no further question or intervention, Jean-René, if you have anything to say, please do not hesitate. Same thing for Margot on the side of co-lead. Babafemi from PAFO, who was traveling, has just joined us. So please let me know if you want to add anything or open your microphone if you want to add something. Yes. I was going to introduce Babafemi because I didn't do so at the beginning.
Babafemi is the CEO of the Pan-African Farmers Organization, and proudly we co-organize those sessions with the PAFO for a number of times. Is the session number 22. And previously he had a strong experience on public, private, and non-governmental sectors. You would have known him as the CEO of the African Agribusiness Alliance, as the CEO of the African Cashew Alliance, of the Director of the African Energy Investment Corporation, Deputy Secretary General of the West African Bankers Association, and I could go on and on and on. So in the interest of time, I would just thank you, Babafemi, as well as your team, of course, for organizing this closely with our counterpart, and give you the floor if you want to add something now. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Isolina. I'm very grateful. I'm very sorry for not being able to join you earlier on because the issues that have been discussed are very interesting issues that really affects our farmers. And we will record that most of these issues also were part of the previous series that we've discussed in terms of labeling and other packaging to ensure that there is a traceability in the products that are sent to Europe. And this geographical indication is adding a new dimension to how we are going to trade with Europe. And I'm really glad that some of the resource persons that you assembled today's series has already given us the challenges and the opportunities that are available. What we are saying as in PAFO, what we are trying to do is first of all create the awareness to our farmers of this regulation, and also we want to also build their capacities by collaborating with the European Union to build their capacity on how to comply with the requirements of this regulation that is the European Union are bringing on. So we continue to solicit the support of our partners to ensure that our farmers take advantage. Like somebody said, that we should not look at these regulations as something that is too difficult, but also something that creates opportunities for every one of us, between both the farmers and the European Union. So I really want to thank all the resource persons of today. Thank you for all the discussions, and I believe that we are going to continue to look at other aspects of this program that will benefit everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for indicating as well the link with the many aspects and traceability and so on, which are critical. I don't know if Benjamin or Monique want to add something, or it is fine. I didn't ask them, but Benjamin, tu veux dire quelque chose?
No, thank you very much. Nothing more than thank you very much, and congratulations for organizing this session. I think it was very interesting.
And
so
Monique
thank you,
as well.
Isolina.
Yes, thank you very much. So I want to say as well that we had almost 400 people registered, and it's a week as well of holiday for school year, children, and and many. So we share all the recording and the documents with the registered. But many people already told us they cannot make it, but they absolutely want to view the exchanges. So some who will not be here today will reach you. And as Babafemi said, it's very important for the PAFO, another farmers organization of his, wide, be at national level group. And I think you have excellent experts today, directly themselves, or who can link you to other experts in the different countries that you can really use, be on the EU markets, be on the local and regional markets. And I know that you work very much also on the opportunities of the Africa Free Trade Continental Area, and this is also many opportunities there. So I would just, from my side, I wouldn't add anything. I think everything has been said. I've learned a lot. I thank you very much for that as well. I thank all the panelists. Excellent. Really, it was very, very interesting. Of course, the interpreters that allow us to communicate, the teams from PAFO and from outside that you don't see very, very often because they are in the, in the background a bit, Nina and Awefa, and of course Gaetan and Sandra and my colleague Margot and so on. And we will share everything and we keep in touch. That's just the start of a conversation. Keep well, all of you, and see you soon. Bye.